Hey guys, this morning I am having a together conversation with someone I really look up to and respect, and this is Kia Stevens. She is the founder of Entrusted Women. She is a blogger, she's a speaker, she's a mama of two and wife of one, and she's actually just a pretty cool human being. So Kia, thanks for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. I can't believe you're saying that you look up to me. I look
do.
up to you, Susie. Oh my gosh, what in the
I
world?
absolutely look up to you. I
Oh
do.
my goodness. Wow. It's quite
So yeah, well, Kia, as I was writing Joy Keeper, one of the chapters we centered on a joy stealer, that we can find ourselves in a place where we're trying to make ourselves lovable to a father who already loves us like crazy, you know? And that can throw us into this cycle of trying to earn his love, of trying to please him with expectations that are higher than what he even puts out there, you know? And it's a cycle that can make you feel really stuck. Now, you write a blog, you have a blog called Father Swap. You talk about something, and I've known you for years now. You've been talking about this for a long time. You talk about father wounds. So first of all, what is a father wound?
Well, a father wound would be an emotional wound that you incurred by way of divorce, abandonment, abuse, incarceration, drug addiction, death, a premature death, or a physically present but an emotionally absent father. And I like to say that the degree of the wound is dependent on when it happened, what was it that actually happened? Was it that he missed a volleyball game, or he spoke harshly to you, or he said you look fat, or something like that? But it just lodged itself in the heart of a woman and left a wound that maybe knowingly and unknowingly impacted her for the rest of her life.
And there's a lot of women that are listening right now that are like, yes, yes,
Yeah.
I have that. I couldn't put a name to it, but now I can. And it's sad, but it's true that father wound can impact our relationship with our Heavenly Father.
Definitely.
And has that, what does that look like for you personally, Kia? How did that impact your relationship with God?
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, Susie. There's a quote that I often go back to that I got from the Washington Times that says sociologists say that it's common for people to perceive that God is like their earthly father. And it's so true. If your father was distant, you might perceive God to be distant. If he was aloof or he didn't really acknowledge your existence, you might feel like that is the way that God is. Or if maybe your father was dominant or abusive, you may view God through that lens unknowingly. And so for me, I grew up in the church. My grandfather was a Baptist pastor, so God was always a present part of my existence. I was one of those families that went to church pretty much every day of the week, if not, majority of the week. That's an embellishment, but at least I went Sunday, sometimes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, some Fridays and Saturday.
You're not embellishing. You're telling me.
I was at church a lot, but and so things that I believed about God, of course, the stories that you read, Noah and Esther and Peter and James and John and Abraham and Isaac, all those I believed. But when it came to the intimate details of my soul, Susie, of if God really was concerned about, an emotional ache or low self-esteem or insecurity, or if he knew that I needed to be held or I felt lonely, those types of things, I just separated this God that I read about in the Bible with his intimate concern about the details of my life. I just assumed that he didn't deal with those things. And that could have been because my mother and father got a divorce when I was just a baby. And so my dad was in and out of my life. And he really did not impact my social emotional growth. He wasn't really there to talk to me about, you know, dating, about guys, or to say, you're pretty, you're beautiful, I love you. He didn't really play that role in terms of validation and
Right.
affirmation, and just really being a presence in my life that a daughter really needs as she matriculates through adolescence and adulthood. My father was not there for me in that way. And so I believe that that is why I began to view God through that type of a lens and say, oh, he's not interested in this.
Yeah. You know what I love about what you're saying is that until we give ourselves permission to go there,
Yeah.
to really look at the source of a wound, then we're not giving ourselves permission to heal and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you're doing is you're looking at and saying, you know what, I am a grown woman, I'm a mom of two. And in order for me to have the most beautiful relationship, not only with my Heavenly Father, but with my family, with people, you know, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look at this father wound. I'm going to call it what it is. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying I'm going to have insight and the courage to move beyond it. And
Mm-hmm.
that is powerful. So to that woman who's like in the place where she's like, man, I have got father wounds.
Yeah.
I have father wounds and I want to stop trying to tap dance, earn, strive my way into my father's love when he already loves me. What would you say to her?
I think the first thing I would say, Susie, is I'm so sorry.
Mm,
I'm so sorry that you did not experience the love of your earthly father in the way in which you desire.
yeah.
I would also say that God's heart is for you.
Yes.
That if you have perceived that your heavenly father is like your earthly father, that's a lie. That's not the truth. That's not accurate. God is who he says that he is in the Bible. He says that he's a good father. He's omniscient. He's omnipotent. He's all-knowing. He is loving and kind and gracious and faithful and so many things, you know. And I think it's the trick of the enemy, and I really think that's why he impacts this relationship so much, so that if we have a skewed vision of our if we have a difficult relationship with our father, then we have one with God, and so that can impact our relationship. But do not believe the lie. And then also, I love 1 Peter 5:7, that says, cast your anxiety on the Lord because he cares for you.
Yeah.
Know that God cares for you, even though this is something that God allowed. He allowed you to experience a father wound. It is not indicative of the type of God that we serve. It does not mean he's not for you, that he doesn't have beautiful plans for you, plans to prosper, prosper you and not to harm you. And even I will give you my own life as an example, because I know some women might say, well, how can a good God, a loving God, allow this in my life? And the way that I see it is that sometimes he allows pain and hardship because he uses it in his good plan for humanity, in the story that he's writing in the earth. Had I have had the relationship with my father that I desired and I longed for, I never would have started the Father Swap blog. I never would have counseled so many women. So there are women that are attached to the pain that I have experienced, women that have come from all over the world, Susie, some from, you know, Africa or Canada or different places, and they tell me their story, you know. And so I know that God trusted me with this this difficult pain to use me to share my story of how I've experienced the love of God the Father with other women who need to know that it is a possibility.
Yeah.
So I would hope that that would be an encouragement to a woman out there, if you're dealing with father wounds, that you would know it's not indicative of the type of God that you have. And it doesn't represent his love for you, but God will take your hurt and he will write a beautiful story for humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you're looking at two women right now who I didn't know my bio dad. I met him for the first time when I was 17. He has a lot of different kids with some different people. And I had a dad that stepped in when I was young who loved me and my sister and my mama well. And I'm grateful for that. But when I think about some of the wounds left by a bio dad who just cut out, and didn't just cut out on me, he's left a lot of people in his path. I have compassion on him because he was very broken. And I believe that God grieves over the brokenness that he left behind him. But I also believe he grieves over the brokenness that was in him. And that has allowed me to understand, not to say what happened was okay, because as a fierce mama, and you're one too, I feel like that to be abandoned, to be left behind, is a travesty.
Yeah.
And yet, I also look at us, two girls who have father wounds, two women who have father wounds, and I see two daddy's girls. But our daddy is our Heavenly Father, and he has proved himself well. He has proved himself well. So I just want to thank you. I want to ask just a couple of things. One is, could you tell us, number one, where they can find Father Swap? And secondly, will you take just a second and tell us about Entrusted Women and how women can find you?
Certainly. Oh, that's unexpected. So if you're interested in reading some more about the father wounds and some of the writings that I have broken apart, you can go to kiastevens.com and you'll be able to get to the Father Swap blog from there. And then also, I recently did a podcast, Susie, in partnership with the Salem Web Network. So it's on live audio, but there's a link to the podcast there as well. And so if you are an auditory learner, you can go there and access that, and I talk about all the things, forgiveness.
We don't worry about that. We don't worry about that at all.
That's unexpected.
Yeah.
But I talk about all the things, knowing God as Father and forgiveness, and how father wounds impact your dating relationship, your marriage, the whole shebang. So you can go there. And then, so Entrusted Women is a group that I started shortly after I began blogging. I was looking for a community with other women of color who were also faith-based communicators, and just couldn't find them anywhere. Or when I would go to Christian conferences, I would see maybe like 10, 15, 20. And I was just having this burden that was developing in my heart of, where are they? What are you doing? Why can't I find you? And so I started Entrusted Women in 2016 to support, connect, and equip and encourage Christian women communicators of color. Yes. And it has, and I honestly say, Susie, it is just such a joy in my life. It wasn't on my radar. I wasn't really thinking about this group, or initially in the onset when I got into the blogging, speaking, writing world, I was not thinking about this. But I know it was on the heart of God, and he had to wrestle with me to start it. And since I started, it was like, oh my gosh, I needed this group. I started this group, but I needed this group. It's oh my goodness. And I tell people that if I was not leading the group, I would be a member.
Yeah.
I would be a member because there's just so much support. And as you know, it can feel lonely and isolating to be a faith-based blogger, to be out there telling people about Jesus on the internet, and people may not want to know about Jesus at this time, but it can be doubly isolating when you're a person of color and you're in a space where you don't see a lot of representation. It can be daunting. You can have insecurities and different things to come up where you wonder, is my readership reflective of my brown skin? So many different things that you can experience. But this group is awesome. We just had a online conference. Thank you, COVID. And that was a huge success. We had some international women to come. And then we just recently launched our Entrusted Women University. So we can do some more systematic training and equipping with women, and hopefully get some more writers out there in the publishing world. I'm excited about that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a great group. You can find us at entrustedwomen.com. So if you go to KiaStevens.com, you can get to fatherswap.com, you can get to the
Oh,
podcast,
yeah.
you can get to Entrusted Women. It's all there.
You know, as I listen to you, 'cause I want to kind of leave this as a final thought, because in chapter 2 of Joy Keeper, which is called You Are Becoming, he knows who you are becoming. I just look at you, Kia, and I think about that father wound that was left. And I think about how the Heavenly Father has taken up residence in those places and not only healed your heart, but he's allowed you and prompted you, and you have jumped in to join arms and stand shoulder to shoulder with other women across the world. Look at what God can do. Look at what our Heavenly Father can do. So if today you have a father wound and somehow it has made you feel less than, or it has made you feel stuck, or you feel like somehow you need to make yourself lovable, understand this: he utterly loves you. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you. And there is no other version of this story. Thank you, Kia, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Anytime, Susie. I just love you.
I love you back.